Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 4th Annual John Wooden Global Leadership Awards. Please welcome the Dean and Johnny Anderson Chair of UCLA Anderson School of Management, Judy Olian.
Good evening. On behalf of UCLA Anderson School of Management, I'm delighted to welcome each of you to a memorable evening. Tonight, we celebrate leaders who are courageous, visionary, inspiring, and caring. Leaders who improve communities and elevate lives around them. These extraordinary individuals are blessed with dreams and drive that propel others to soar. They have the gift of transforming the seemingly impossible into spectacular and enduring successes. Tonight we'll honor such a leader, Peter Victor Ueberroth. It's a great privilege for UCLA Anderson to present the John Wooden Global Leadership Program, as well as its annual Leadership Award. Sadly, this is the first year in which we celebrate the legacy of legendary coach John Wooden without him in our midst. He's sorely missed, but he lives on in all he taught us and in all he demonstrated in the way we live. His impact spanned many generations of students and athletes, young people who matured into remarkable contributors to society, who themselves became leaders, doers, and influencers. Some of these special people are here with us tonight, and they'll share stories of what they learned from the coach's pyramid of success, the model of leadership that Coach Wooden perfected. Throughout his decades of coaching and teaching, he perfected the pyramid of success, and we're delighted to have members of Coach's family with us tonight. Could the Wooden family stand to be recognized, led by Nan Wooden, his daughter, and Jim Wooden, his son. Please stand. We've a video that we'd like to share with you that I know has special meaning for the family and for Bruins and fans everywhere. The star of the clip is Coach's great-grandson, Tyler Trapani. Let's watch.
How special would that be? Closing down Pauley Pavilion as we know it.
Then moves him into position and then working it around.
Tyler Trapani.
How about that? I mean, on a perfect afternoon. Destiny.
That's his mom, Kathleen. That's his mom, Kathleen. Grandma, Nan, loving it.
John R. Wooden's great-grandson with this.
Activity and achievement. The air ball by Jack Haley Jr.
How about that? The last basket at Pauley Pavilion.
How fitting is that?
One of the great moments in college basketball.
Tyler's moment in the video is unforgettable, scoring the last basket for the Bruins and the last points ever scored in the original Pauley Pavilion, the building that Coach opened. Tyler is with us this evening, and I'd like to ask Tyler to please come out and share what that moment meant to him and to the Wooden family. Tyler.
All right. Hello. I'd just like to welcome you all again to the 4th Annual John Wooden Global Leadership Award. First of all, I would like to thank you for showing that video again. But I really do not understand why I'm here, although I'm very appreciative for the invite. I'm just a student athlete here at UCLA, yet my great-grandpa was the late John Wooden. And yes, he was the coach, leader, and teacher of the UCLA basketball team. With this basket, my great-grandpa would agree, or my great-grandpa would have said, "Who cares, you scored, you are on the team." I would agree with him. I also would say, technically, that was not the last basket in Pauley Pavilion. If you kind of look a little bit further, Arizona's Kevin Parham hit a free throw with 15 seconds left in the game. However, I am proud to say I had the last rebound in Pauley. This rebound shows the hard work that I did in that game. This work sets the foundation for even greater work to come. This is just like my great-grandpa's pyramid of success. When he constructed the pyramid, he believed that the foundation had to be the strongest. My great-grandpa has stated, do not mistake activity for achievement. What I was doing running on the floor, that was just activity. But the end result, that was the achievement. For one to be a good leader, one must start at the bottom and work their way up to the top. And once at the top, they must be able to motivate people. A good leader is one that can work and can inspire people to work. As my great-grandpa has said, ability may get you to the top, but it takes character to keep you there. Mr. Uberoth is a leader. He organized the Summer Olympics in Los Angeles and was named Time Magazine's Man of the Year in 1984. Mr. Uberoth was also the baseball commissioner from 1984 to 1989. After baseball, he led the Rebuild Los Angeles project after the 1992 Los Angeles riots. My great-grandpa would be honored to have this year's recipient, Peter Uberoth, receive this award because he has exhibited the qualities of great leadership. Thank you again for the opportunity to welcome you to the Anderson Management John Wooden Global Leadership Award ceremony.
Thank you, Tyler. At UCLA Anderson, we believe in sharing Coach Wooden's leadership values, his wisdom, his humility, his generosity, with the next generation of business leaders. Principled leadership is the cornerstone of what we've been teaching at UCLA Anderson for over 75 years. Our 75th anniversary slogan, in fact, is business beyond usual. It captures our can-do spirit, and it embodies the DNA of our alumni and students. So I'd like to introduce to you two of our beyond usual students who are this year's recipients of the John Wooden Global Leadership Award fellowships. They are Russell Altenberg, the MBA class of 2012, and Valerie Sun, FEMBA class of 2013. They were both chosen because in their lives and careers, they've demonstrated the generosity of spirit and commitment to community work and civic values that are the coach's hallmark in his pyramid of success. Russ, Valerie, would you please stand and we can applaud you. There are many people to whom we're grateful tonight, many more than we can recognize, but I want to just recognize a couple. The first is the UCLA Anderson Board of Visitors, our directors, whose unstinting generosity, guidance, and support is vital to the school's mission and help make this evening possible. So, board members, do you mind standing so that we can give you a big round of applause? Governor Pete Wilson is with us tonight, friend and partner to Peter Uberoth. Where is Governor Wilson? Governor Wilson back there. And some very distinguished members of the Bruin family are also here who will participate in the program later on. Basketball great Keith Erickson, UCLA gymnastics head coach Valerie Contis Field, and Rayford Johnson, a UCLA decathlete and gold medal Olympian who also played hoops for Coach Wooden and lit the Olympic flame at the '84 Olympic Games. So would all three stand? Now, leading our after-dinner discussion will be Al Michaels. We're very fortunate to have Al here tonight, who's been a wonderful friend to UCLA, to Coach Wooden, and to Peter Ueberroth. He's an icon of sports broadcasting, the first play-by-play commentator to cover all 4 major championships in sports: NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, and NFL. And he's also covered many Olympics. In that vein, he's perhaps best known for calling the 1980 Winter Olympic hockey game between the US and the Soviet Union with the final second exclamation, "Do you believe in miracles? Yes." He's been honored with 4 sports Emmys and was nominated for a News Emmy for his work during the San Francisco earthquake at the 1989 World Series. Al's been inducted into the National Sportscasters and Sports Writers Hall of Fame, and he even has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So thank you, Al, for being here. No one is more suited than Al to interview his friend and the recipient of the 2011 John Wooden Global Leadership Award. We'll be introducing Peter later in the evening. And that's all coming up after dinner. So first, please enjoy the meal, everyone. Bon appetit, and we'll see you in a short while. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, now America's preeminent sportscaster, who has hosted numerous Olympic Games, Monday night and now Sunday night football on NBC, Major League Baseball, and is a favorite of sports fans around the country, please welcome Al Michaels.
I went deep into my closet because I am an Arizona State graduate, but I found this tie, which is appropriate for this evening. I love UCLA because I had the great good fortune in 1975 to do UCLA basketball on KTLA television. And that was at a time when it's before ESPN, it's before cable television, and the Bruins were on live on the road and at home from Pauley. They would tape delay it and play it at 11 o'clock, and the ratings were astronomical because Coach, of course, had put together a series of teams that had captivated everybody's attention, and it was must-see television. And it was, as I say, my great fortune to be there when Coach Wooden wrapped up his career and wrapped it up with that great championship, just another, in San Diego, to end what I thought was the greatest coaching career in the history of American sports. So anytime I have a chance to be involved with anything that involves Coach Wooden or Coach Wooden's family, it is an honor and a pleasure, because I can't think of anybody really in history that was more accessible and more approachable and on a personal, one-to-one, look you in the eye, handshake, sit with you, help you basis, meant more to more people in a positive way. I cannot think of anybody, and if you can, I want you to call me Collect. John Wooden was one of a kind, a wonderful man, and this is a great honor, of course, for Peter Ueberroth and the school itself to be presented an award in the name of a legend and a classic man and a man who enriched all of our lives. A man who played for him is going to come out right now, but before he does, let's take a look at a video detailing a little bit about Coach Wooden's life.
John Wooden. His UCLA dynasty won 7 national championships in a row, 10 in 12 years, 88 straight games, perfect season after perfect season. Many call him the greatest coach America has ever seen. But while John Wooden was setting a new standard of excellence, he was always guided by his own standard of success.
I was raised on a small farm in southern Indiana. Dad tried to teach me and my three brothers that you should never try to be better than someone else. But he didn't stop there. He said, learn from others, and never cease trying to be the best that you can be. As long as you know that you made the effort to do the best of what you're capable, there's no failure.
He had radically redefined success, but the coach wanted to do more. He wanted to show his students how to achieve success in the classroom, at school, in life. What he created became a lasting monument to his teaching. What he created was a new way to approach life.
He promoted that kind of an idea of let's have a complete system. Let's have something that's a philosophy of life that we can give our players so that they can have something more when they move on into life.
For many, the Pyramid of Success would become the Wizard of Westwood's greatest gift. But far from being magical, the pyramid provided practical tools to help live real life in the real world.
There is no substitute for hard work. If you're looking for the easy way, if you're looking for the trick, you might get by for a while, but you will not be developing the talents that lie within you. There simply is no substitute for work. Don't be afraid to fail. The greatest failure of all is failure to act when action is needed. Use the information that you've acquired in the past through the experiences you've had, and act with self-control, but act. You can't have confidence unless you are prepared. Failure to prepare is preparing to fail. I never met a person from whom I did not learn something. Of course, most of the time it was something not to do. Well, that's learning, just the same as learning something to do.
Coach Wooden's a mystic, but you wouldn't think that. He looks like this square Midwestern guy. There's a very mystic quality to what he did and how he affected the lives of young men. You know, being a father figure and a leader and a guide.
Passion. Passion is temporary. It doesn't last long. Love is enduring, and that's the important thing. If we all had love in our lives, the degree that we should have, oh, it would be much happier. I like a little poem. It says, a bell isn't a bell until you ring it. A song isn't a song until you sing it. And the love that is in us wasn't put there to stay. Love isn't love till you give it away. That's the important thing, most important word in our dictionary.
Things went in the order of Nell, his kids, and then basketball. And he was maybe fifth. We're talking about a very selfless man.
I was very fortunate, very, very fortunate. Nellie was my high school sweetheart. She was the only girl I ever dated. And we had 53 wonderful years together before I lost her. But she was so cooperative in every way. And I think we need help to help you do what you're capable of doing. She was great.
What he taught us was not about basketball. He taught us about life. He taught us about values. He taught us about personal characteristics, things that we would need to be successful later on in life.
John Wooden, values, victory, and peace of mind. The common sense philosophy of one of America's most uncommon men.
Like the actual real pyramids, that pyramid should live forever. I mean, 1,000 years from now, the philosophy is still going to be the same. And I think people can be enriched by just listening to that. It's timeless, it's ageless. And the man who was right at the center of it when he started his career, attended UCLA, played on 2 national championship teams, also played basketball, baseball, and volleyball. And I think Coach Wooden at one point said may have been the finest athlete he ever coached. Would you welcome Keith Erickson?
Thank you very much, Al. And it's an honor to be here this evening and to be speaking on behalf of Coach Wooden, and along with Rafer, one of the two of us being former players of Coach Wooden's and a part of his extended family. He used to call us his boys. So I'm thrilled to be here tonight to be able to address you a little bit. My block in the pyramid tonight is team spirit. And Coach Wooden defined that as a genuine consideration for others, an eagerness to sacrifice personal interests of glory for the welfare of all. I played on the 1964 NCAA championship team, which was the first NCAA championship for UCLA and for Coach Wooden. And we had an exceptionally close team, and we had to have one that year. But Coach Wooden, talking about our team, he said it was like a hand in a glove. He said that their togetherness on the court has never been surpassed by any group that I've coached. And there were obstacles and there was independence that had to be overcome, and it was the genius of Coach Wooden that brought us together. There was no one on our starting team that was over 6 feet 5 inches. You know, this was a number of years ago, but other teams around the country had 6'8", 6'9", 7-footers all over the country. Our practice facility was called the B.O. Barn. There was no ventilation. There were very poor lights. There were distractions at the end of our one full-length court. There was the wrestling team and the gymnastics team that were participating at the same time. We had no home court. We played a couple of games at Santa Monica City College. We played in Long Beach. We played a majority of the games downtown LA at the sports arena, which is near the SC campus. And at the beginning of that season, we were not ranked in the top 50 teams in the country. And we came back that year and we went 30-0 and won the NCAA championship because of Coach Wooden. And very quickly about some of the trials that he had with our players, I believe that Walt Hazzard and Gail Goodrich were the two finest backcourt guards in the history of collegiate basketball. Walt Hazzard handled the ball, Gail shot the ball. Walt had it most of the time, Gail wanted it all the time. And the genius of Coach Wooden was the way he handled both of the players. Walt was fiery. He came from the streets of Philadelphia, and Walt would come down the floor with the ball, go between his legs and behind his back and throw the ball out of bounds. Now, Coach Wooden didn't swear, but if he ever said, "Goodness gracious sakes alive," you knew you were in big trouble. Walt would bring the ball down the floor, and he'd go through and he'd throw it out of bounds in practice, and Coach Wooden would blow that whistle, and everybody would stop, and he would go, "Walter, goodness gracious sakes alive, you do that again, you're out of here." And we'd pick up practice and go, and a couple of minutes later, Walt would go throw it in the third row of the stands, and he'd blow that whistle, and Walt was out of practice. But Coach was intense, and he was in his face, and that's the way Walt responded. And then he would talk to Gail, and he would say, "Now, Gail, now, I know you want the ball all the time, and you want to shoot all the time, but if Walt has it, he'll get it to you, and you can shoot a lot, okay?" And he would pat him, and Gail would say, "Well, that's great, Coach, thank you." And he would go off. We had a player named Jack Hirsch who was independently wealthy and didn't have to be there. And Coach Wooden said he was the only player that I've ever had that called me John. And one day in practice, I remember we were going through layup drills before the practice began, and Jack yelled out, "Woody, this one's for you," and threw this. Very independent players on our team, but Coach Wooden brought us all together to be the best team in the country that year. No one gave us a chance in the final game against Duke with two 6'10" players and two guys that played in the NBA for many years, and we ended up winning that game by 15 points. I got to play for Coach Wooden for 3 years, and for the last 45 years, we were good friends, and I'll never forget those days. What a blessing and what an honor to be one of his boys and to be able to share with you this evening and to be a part of this event with Coach Valerie and Rafer and honoring Peter Uberoth tonight. Thank you so much for letting me share with you. Thank you.
Thought I'd heard all the Coach Wooden stories, not that one though. I can't imagine Coach being called Woody. Speaking of coaches, they come in all shapes and sizes, and occasionally you don't even have to be an athlete in that sport to wind up with an unbelievable resume. And thus it is for UCLA head coach Valerie Condos Field, the UCLA women's gymnastics coach, who was a ballerina and not a gymnast, and all she has done was lead the Bruins to 6 national championships. So before it's all said and done, she may eclipse Coach Wooden. Ladies and gentlemen, Valerie Condos Field.
Thank you. What an honor to be here. Thank you so much. When Coach passed, one of the questions I was asked often was, what's the one thing you learned from Coach Wooden? And as Keith just referenced, the first thing that came into my mind was, goodness gracious sakes alive, how am I supposed to pick the one thing? And when I was asked to be here tonight and speak on the pyramid, I looked at all of the blocks, and quite honestly, Coach and I were friends for only about 14 years, but I could have spoken on every one of these things and what I learned from him. But the most important thing, and the thing that stands out the most to me is, as Al just mentioned, was I was never an athlete, a competitive athlete. I was a dancer. And when they gave me the head coaching job at UCLA, they offered it to me. I thought, this is really absurd. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'll take it for a year, and then you can go find somebody else that's more qualified. And the first thing I did, I thought was brilliant. I studied and learned to parrot great coaches. So I learned to say things like, go hard or go home. And inside I was chuckling because it sounded so silly coming out of my mouth. And my favorite was, winners make adjustments and losers make excuses. I thought that was really cool. And I took in that 1 year a very successful women's gymnastics program at UCLA, and we plummeted quickly. So the next year, I did my homework even more, and I came up with more coach phrases, and I couldn't believe it, but we did even worse. Excuse me. And as a Hollywood movie would hopefully maybe someday depict, I was walking through the Ackerman Union, and I saw a little blue book, and it was written by this gentleman by the name of Coach John Wooden. And I'm not proud to say that I really didn't know much about him, because I grew up in the dance world. And I knew that we actually trained in the building that had his name on it. And I knew that there was this triangle thing that people talked a lot about, but I really didn't understand what it was all about until I read Coach's definition of success. And that we all have read it many, many times. Success is peace of mind. That is a direct result of knowing that you have done your best to become the best that you are capable of becoming. And when I read that, it was like the heavens parted and the angels sang. Because Coach was saying in that definition of success, don't try to be anybody else. Become the best that you are capable of becoming. So I thought, I can do that. I stopped mimicking other people. I stopped parroting other people. And I started figuring out what my own philosophies were, coming from a very disciplined sport, the classical ballet world. And sure enough, we started having success. And 7 years later, won our first national championship at UCLA. And a few years before Coach passed, the LA Times did an article on Coach and I, and why Coach was so fond of our program. And the reporter said, you're going to be the next John Wooden. And before I could even respond, Coach crossed his little arms and his eyes sparkled, and he said, why would she want to be the next John Wooden when she can be the best Valerie Condos Field? What a gift. What a gift from someone whom we all have so much respect for to say, go out and be the best that you can be. And so of all those blocks, I felt that initiative spoke most to that story. So thank you very much. Congratulations, Mr. Ubrath, and thank you, Coach. We love you dearly.
Well, UCLA's legacy, of course, in basketball set forever. What Valerie's doing, women's gymnastics, on its way to being set forever. And then there was track and field. And you go back, and it's hard to believe, 51 years ago. And I guess if you wanted to define, and it's an arguable situation, I guess, but world's greatest athlete, it almost always comes down to somebody who can do a lot of things at one particular time. And thus, very often, it's thought that the world's greatest athlete would be the reigning Olympic decathlon champion. And in 1956, this man won the silver medal in the Olympics and then followed it up with the gold medal in 1960 and was so good at so many other things that he actually at one time played for Coach Wooden's basketball team. He has a connection, of course, to our honoree tonight because in 1984, he was the man who was chosen to ascend those steps at the Coliseum and light the Olympic flame to get the 1984 Olympic Summer Games underway. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Rafer Johnson.
Thank you very much, Al. I am very pleased to be here this evening to have the opportunity to say a little bit about two gentlemen who were very important to me and very important to many of us throughout this community. And I can remember some moments that I will never forget being in the presence of each of these gentlemen that we talk about this evening. Obviously, I wasn't an All-American high school basketball player. And so when I went out for the team, I had this opportunity to, I think, play with probably the greatest coach that ever lived. And I'll never forget my first day on the floor. There must have been 4 or 5 athletes who had been the best player in their individual states, high school All-Americans, and some of the greatest young basketball players up to that time. And so when I checked in that first session, I looked around at all these great basketball players and just wondered how I might fit in. Obviously, I played a little basketball, but I mostly was known for track. But my coach was a very good friend of Coach Wooden. So after having a conversation with Coach Drake, I decided to go out for basketball and play, hopefully, for Coach Wooden. And I remember the first conversation he had with all the athletes. He had a special thing that he did with how you tied your shoes, how you wore your uniform. And of course, when you get on the floor, he basically wanted each athlete to be the best that he could be. And I didn't have much of a jump shot. There were a couple of athletes, doing little 15-foot hookers. I couldn't do that. But there was one thing I could do, and that I could run. And, and the good thing about it is that they never measured the length of the shots. I mean, you can go back and look at the record books, and someone scores 6 points. I mean, you don't know how he scored the 6 points. I mean, I score 8, 10 points. You don't know how I did that, and I'll tell you how that happened. At one time, believe it or not, I had the highest percentage of any basketball player in our conference. Now, I said before I didn't hook, and my jump shots weren't that long, but I raced up and down the floor quick enough that I made a lot of layups, and thusly was the highest percentage shooting athlete on any basketball team in my conference. Yeah. We didn't win as much as the Keith era won. I mean, Keith talked about 30 straight. I think maybe he had 2 seasons where they went 30-0. And I believe, no, I know that we never did that. But we did win more than we lost. And I really think in those years that was saying a lot when, as Keith said, Coach Wooden managed to basically win with tall teams, with short teams, with kids who could shoot, with kids who could run. And as great as we all felt playing for Coach Wooden, more importantly, as Keith mentioned, those are just 3 or 4 years that we had the opportunity to spend with Coach Wooden, to have the opportunity to perform the way he wanted you to perform on the court. And when I thought about what I might, of the blocks, speak very briefly on, is competitive greatness. It's the top block on the pyramid. And, you talk about friendship and initiative, teamwork, hard work. All those things are very important. But I think most important of all is to be ready to play the game at the time that the clock starts. To be prepared to be the best that you can be, take the best shot you can take, play the best defense you can play, make the best passes you can make during the course of the game. And in fact, at the moment you have to do that, be able to perform. And to me, competitive greatness is the essence of the game. It's about being the very best that you could be. Taking your best moments, supporting your team, taking your best moments to fill in for a teammate who may not be quite as sharp as he was the evening before, the weekend before, and the teammate doing the same for you. Competitive greatness is, to me, one of the great lessons that I learned from Coach Wooden. Now, as Keith said, it's a very short period of time that we spend with the coach. We, of course, listen. We, of course, try to put those things to use, as I've said. But more importantly, or as important, is for all these years subsequent to playing really literally a few minutes of basketball, a few hours of working out, Coach Wooden has had an unbelievable effect on every athlete among his boys who played for him. That, to me, was a great time. Down the path, some years later, I had the honor of being on the board of directors and the executive committee for the games of 1984. And during the course of trying to find the person that was to head up those games, there was a very, in a sense, a very high-powered executive with one of the national firms, international firms. The other choice that we could have made was Peter Ueberroth, who was well, no, wait a minute. I didn't go downhill on that. I'm going uphill. Was this the entrepreneur who took businesses that he had developed and moved them to a point where they were the top company in the world, in the product and the service that his companies provided. So I thought that was great. Secondly, Peter was an athlete at San Jose State, played water polo, and he missed the Olympic team by a very, I don't know how they picked the team in those years. I certainly would have picked Peter Ueberroth, because he brought to what he did, his game in water polo and his running his businesses, and certainly brought it as the leader of the games of '84. And subsequently, those games, as we know at the very end, were the greatest Olympic Games ever held. Now, the two qualities that I saw in Peter, again, was that he built those companies to a point that they were the best in the world, and he was an ex-athlete who really knew what to do to make the games, I believe, of '84 as successful as they were. I believe that they were the greatest, and certainly was one of two games that have made a finish in the black. And as you know, that games of '84 was $200 million. Now, the question that I get more than anything else about my career is usually not basketball. And as I told you, I had a couple of good years in my layup thing. Had a medal win in the Olympics. But the questions asked of me most is, how is it that you were chosen to carry the torch in '84? And I've heard this story explained on several occasions, and I just thought I'd take this opportunity tonight so Peter could hear it and get it right. There was 25 of us on the executive committee, and I entered the room. There were 3 seats available, and I sat in the very first seat by the door. In a very short period of time, the other 2 seats were filled. John Jiffrin was speaking at the time and said he thought it was time that we select the person who was to head the games for the next 4.5 years. Justin Dart was on my right. And so Justin had always been pushing to have this vote, and he started the vote, and he voted for Peter Ueberroth. It went around the room, and when it got back to me, it was 12-12. I voted for Peter, and I carried the torch. So. There were two unbelievable things happen from where I stood in the games of '84. One is to have the honor of carrying the torch on his final leg into the Coliseum. It's something I will absolutely never forget. The second was having an opportunity to work with Peter Ueberroth during the course of those years, to see him perform, and he could certainly have a pyramid of success, and they would include the kinds of things that's listed in Coach Wooden's pyramid. He worked hard. He inspired everyone around him. He made it possible for people to use their skills, to bring their skills and to build their skills. He had an unbelievable team, and I was so fortunate to be a part of that team. If there were 10 individuals who deserve to be here this evening and receive this award, I don't know who 9 of them are, but we have the best here tonight in Peter Ueberroth. Thank you.
I think we all agree with that, and it's time for the man of the hour. But before the man of the hour comes up, he has some buddies around the world who would like to say a few things to him.
Good evening. I can't tell you what a pleasure it is for me to be receiving this John Wooden Global Leadership Award tonight. I mean, it's a dream come true. I've admired John Wooden all my life. I've tried to live by his principles, and to be honored by you in getting this Global Leadership Award, well, it just means a lot to me. My family will be pleased. My friends will be cheering for me. So
Warren.
What?
Warren, it's Peter.
I'm doing an important.
But Warren, it's Peter.
Stop that. Peter who?
Peter Ubroth is being honored, not you.
Peter Ubroth?
Peter Ubroth.
That fellow on the coast?
Yes, I'm afraid so.
I just don't get it.
Mr. Peter V. Uberoff.
Pete, congratulations. What a wonderful honor to receive the Wooden Award.
Honestly, I can't think of a more deserving person to receive this award than Peter Ubroth.
Very well deserved. Like John Wooden, Peter was a great teacher and leader. He always expected people to be the best they could be and prompted them to step up their game whenever they could.
First of all, I sure remember first meeting you, and you were this kid just surfing in Hawaii, having a hell of a good time. And I haven't written any of this, I'm saying this for the way I feel. I hired you as sales, well, I was running an airline, small airline between LA and Hawaii and back. And it wasn't much later than that. Impressed me so much that we made him sales manager for the whole airline.
And then one day, when I was running marketing for United Airlines, I got a call from a man by the name of Justin Dart. And old Jess called me, he said, "Dick, do you know this kid Uberoth?" And I said, "Yeah, Jess, I do. Why do you ask?" He said, "Well, we're thinking about getting him to run the Olympics for 1984, and we're going to go out and bid on it." I said, "Well, that's wonderful. Well, what do you think about him?" I said, "I think you'd be lucky to get him." Well, they got him, and obviously the proof is in the pudding. Everybody knows it was the greatest Olympics ever held, and all due to Pete and his entrepreneurship, his aggressiveness, and his ability to get things done.
I got a call from Peter, wanted to talk to me. He sent a car, I came over to the office, and when I walked in, David Walper was there, and Peter subsequently came in. He was straightforward, asked me if I wanted to carry the torch, and I took about a second, and my answer was yes. I was very, very proud to carry the torch in the opening ceremonies of 1984.
Your leadership and your vision really helped the athletes, especially myself, being from Los Angeles, to make the 1984 Olympic Games a great Olympic Games. And it was a fantastic experience for me and my family just to be in that atmosphere. And thanks to you, it was a fantastic Olympic Games.
I've known Peter Uberoth for more than 25 years. We met shortly after he so successfully staged the 1984 Olympic Games, and he was Time Magazine's Man of the Year. If you have to have just one friend in life, the Major League Baseball commissioner is not a bad choice.
Welcome to a great leader, the Commissioner of Baseball, Mr. Peter Uberoth.
Peter Uberoth was an extraordinary commissioner and did marvelous things for Major League Baseball that are still very apparent today.
Peter did a wonderful job as Commissioner of Baseball, and I think he changed baseball.
Thank you, Commissioner. Peter Uberoth is a great man, and we're all very lucky to have him as a fellow citizen.
I would think that all of us would stand and cheer for the kind of work that Peter has done and his interest in this community and, in fact, around the world.
He's so well-rounded. That's why he is so successful, in my opinion.
Pete and I have been co-chairmen, co-CEOs for over 20 years together. And our final piece de resistance is where I'm sitting right here at Pebble Beach, California. Have a happy day, and the best to you and your family.
And many happy days, Peter.
Okay, you can start rolling again. Good evening. I can't tell you how pleased I am to hear that Peter Ueberroth is winning the John Wooden Global Leadership Award. You couldn't have picked somebody better. I mean, this man exemplifies what John Wooden has talked about all his life. So I congratulate the committee that selected him. I congratulate Peter. I wish I could be with you personally, just to look at him. I mean, what a friend, what a man. And you've made a great choice, and have fun this evening. Thank you. Peter Ueberroth, what were they thinking?
Your chances are awfully good.
And so now live, up close and personal, the winner of the John Wooden Global Leadership Award for 2011, Peter Ueberroth. You'll get the hardware shortly, but first let's cover a couple of things. 27 years ago, the most amazing daily double in the history of the planet took place. The city of Los Angeles had no smog and no traffic. How did you pull that off?
John Wooden was a religious man. And so that was, we looked upstairs and, you know, Los Angeles has pretty good weather most all the time. People always want to pick on us, but a lot of people want to live here, and that's where I'm going to stay. Traffic is solvable. Traffic is very solvable. Just short thing for everybody here. If you're on the freeways and you get stuck in the next few days at any time, realize that you could stop it, and you could stop it in a week. Traffic from 55 miles an hour to gridlock, so gridlock to 55 miles an hour free flowing, is only 8%. It's 8%. And we took off 20%. Freeways, and with that one we knew we won. We loved when the various universities, not this one, were criticizing us and we were going to have a gridlock. We could do that, you know, we could do that tomorrow here by just figuring out how to take 8% off, and you wouldn't have jammed up freeways. And you know, as an idea, you could just put a letter on each car, an M or T or TH or W or F, and that car couldn't go on the freeways. It could drive anywhere on one day, the day that had the, and wealthy people have two cars and they could trade their cars. But the truth is you're taking 20% off, and everybody'd get the idea, and it worked, and we'd have no traffic on the freeways.
That makes so much sense. I'd like you to run for mayor, by the way.
No.
Before the Olympics in '84, and people forget, and it wasn't mentioned in the piece, there's a lot of stuff going on. We boycott the Moscow Games in 1980, and then quid pro quo, the Soviet Union and a lot of the Eastern Bloc countries boycotted the LA Games. So you had to put up with all of that. But then China was big in terms of coming over here. What were your expectations going into those games?
Well, you know, in the end, the boycotts are a disgrace. Our boycott, we picked the fight. You know, Jimmy Carter was a good president in some people's minds, but I mean, that was a real bad decision. You know, Afghanistan's still having problems. And remember, he boycotted. He told all the athletes of the world, don't go to the Moscow Games because of Afghanistan. And it didn't solve that problem. And so we just knew that we were going to be boycotted, and the Soviets gave a list of 100 countries that had committed in writing not to come to our games, your games. And basically, we had developed our own little private State Department, and we trained them for 3 years. We had them visiting the countries of their choice. We had them who had language, had all the skills, and to get to know all the athletes of the country, the sports minister, hopefully the head of state, and we would break the Soviet boycott when it came. And really all the countries came other than about 8 that counted, and it was just volunteers, a lot of them from UCLA. In fact, the UCLA group, 2 of the 3 people I sent to China, and they were number 1, incidentally, on the boycott list, and they'd never gone to Olympic Games ever in their history. So that's why the Soviet Union put them as the number 1 on the list. And the 3 volunteers, I mean, when they announced the boycott, these people all had been trained for 3 years, been visiting their countries, and they were all just immediately on airplanes. And the guy called me, the group, there's 3 of them in China, and said, we have Deng Xiaoping's signature, and he's going to bring the largest team in the whole history of the Olympic Games, and they're going to come, and they won the first medal, and that really broke the back of the boycott. And all the other people, I mean, a woman lives over here, went to Romania, in a very poor country in the Soviet Union and Soviet bloc, and she got that country to come, and they had the best gymnastic teams in the world at the time and the best rowers and all the rest. So we basically, the people of Southern California blew the boycott out of the water, so it was unsuccessful, and there hasn't been one since.
I think of you as a man who, you accomplished what you did in your mid-40s, running the Olympics, Time Man of the Year. You know, you went to the moon. You were Neil Armstrong. And I always wondered about, you know, you do something, and it's almost going to be impossible to top it. And you're a young guy, and yet for the rest of your life, you've accomplished a lot, you've been engaged in a lot. Just walk me through how you had to think it through at the end of that and where you are today in your life.
Well, you know, we had a lot of money left over, and that's because we used volunteers. We, if we had 50,000 volunteers who gave us a year of their life, and we didn't pay them, you know, you can figure out why you had money left over. You know, you hire a lot of people, you don't pay them, and you keep the money. And so, what I told them all is, this is going to be one of the emotional high points. It's not going to be having children. It's not going to be your marriage. It's not going to be any of those things. But it's going to be a very high point in your career. And all of you got to make decisions to get out of here. Because when we shut down, we're going to shut down. We're not going to spend any money. We're not going to spend rent. We're going to give the money away. And it's gone to youth and kids in our country. 40% of it here, doing very well. And so we got everybody to start planning ahead, and I committed to a 1-year term as baseball commissioner in May before the games. They said, look, your games are organized, just come join us now. And I said, no, I'll commit, but I'm going to do it my 5 years. I won't start till after the games. And you know, right after the games, you know, the umpires were on strike, and there was all kinds of troubles, and I was quickly immersed in that kind of stuff.
And then baseball, Rebuild LA, and a lot of other things through the course of recent history. I think of you in a parallel situation, let's say with Coach Wooden, in the sense that with young people, looking into their eyes as they would talk to Coach Wooden, and he would engage them one-to-one, and he was so influential, and they were almost, you know, sitting at his knee, waiting to hear what the Holy Grail would be. People who I think would be in business school to this day would look at Peter Ueberroth and say basically the same thing. You know, what can you tell me? What can I learn from you? You've dealt with a lot of kids through the years. In today's world, what do you tell them? What do you tell kids who are going to go into the business world?
Well, first of all, let's be clear. I'm no John Wooden, and the John Wooden family can attest to that. John Wooden affected my life because he, you know, during the Olympic Games and one instance before, you know, he'd give you the 15 minutes and you'd explain something that to you is very complex and complicated and, you know, sometimes a little bit life and death and everything else, and clear, those blue eyes, they'd give you the clear judgment, and you realize you are in the presence of a very special person. And so all of you who are honoring him tonight, it's John Wooden John Wooden is, and he's going to continue for a long time to come, because you're going to build on that reputation and never let it die. But young business people, what I tell them, and I did that today, part of this honor, speak to some students, and you know, I told them that the world's changing so fast you can't see it, and so you got to get on the razor's edge of change, and until you do that, we won't be, unless you continue to do that and do that better, we won't be competitive as a country. And then I reminded them that every single business person needs to devote some energy to K through 12, because that's the disaster, that's the underbelly, that's the cancer in our country. It's a cancer in this community. 60% are now dropping out of LA Unified School District systems. And so if we can't do that, if we can't educate our young, we don't have a nation. And so you don't have a nation, you don't have a product, you don't have quality of life, you don't invent new things. And so every one of those graduates, you know, in the Anderson School, I told them, you've got a second job. That's your second job. You've got to figure out a way to make impact on that for the next generation. And that's a message that John Wooden would second.
On a sports business note, you were the commissioner of baseball. We know about what you did with the Olympics. You followed sports your whole life. You get it. You understand it. The National Football League, this incredibly wealthy entity. Where'd you think I was going?
Yeah, right.
the National Football League, there's a very good possibility that some games will be missed, maybe an entire season.
Right.
You look at it, you're detached, but you understand this. There's a $9 billion pot, and they can't figure out, or they don't want to figure out at this point, how to divvy it up. Just give me 90 seconds on the NFL right now.
Well,
or more.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm qualified in some other sports, water polo, but you know, here's my prediction. I believe they'll take it right up to the tilt and actually lose some of the preseason games, and they may even get into a game or two. But I think that they'll solve the problems. In this case, they're fighting over two things, and it's not really what's important. What they will focus on. There's some people in the audience. Jim Easton with Easton Bell Riddell you know, they're making new kinds of protective gear. They're figuring out how to make football players have longer lives. I get, as an ex-commissioner, I get all the data of the great athletes, unfortunately, but there's a service that does it as they pass on. And you know, the baseball players are 91 and 88 and 74 and 79 and 82, and the football players are 54 and 48 and 61. And so that issue is alive and well in between them, and some of that's got to they got to work that out between them. But I think you know, football is the most successful sport in our country by a long measure, and I think they'll settle it.
Talk to me about the Olympics, where they are right now compared to where they were in 1984, and what do you see in the foreseeable future here?
Well, basically, UCLA made a gift, and along with you know, remember in Los Angeles, we put the games on in 29 cities and 9 counties in 3 states, so we spread it around. But the IOC, which owns the Olympic movement, had only $3 million in the bank, so they couldn't help us much here in Southern California putting on the Olympic Games. But they took our plan, and we thought they were good, because it was a good plan. It was developed by a lot of smart people. You know, the first 30 days, I just got some consultants who were really smart by the 2 major universities, and we talked about it. Anyway, they took our plan, and we thought they would give it to the next games, which were held in Korea, but they didn't do it. They took it and gave it to themselves. And so their $3 million is now over $3 billion. And it's a little organization in Switzerland that has a lot of money, and so money is driving too much of it. It's got to be more about athletes coming together and learning the cultures and playing the sports and cleanly playing the sports and playing the sports with their hearts and minds and being friends and because the borders of this world are all getting erased a little bit. So, you know, you just take a look at your campus. It's a group of the brightest people, but they come from all over the world.
The of all your great accomplishments, you also have 4 children, 8 grandchildren, and not only did you stop traffic and smog, but you've been married to the same lady for 51 years. What's that key?
Well, first of all, he's a journalist and he's got it wrong. You know,
I'm not a newspaper guy.
I know. We've been married for 620 months because I don't know why, but my wife, God bless her, said when we got married in the 50s, and she was a teenager and I was older, so she didn't necessarily trust me all of it. She said, well, let's, you know, we don't have any money, and let's just quietly have a little dinner once a month, and we'll celebrate it month to month rather than having a big anniversary. And I said, that's good with me. And until I was in baseball, and I watched these guys get 8-year and 10-year no-cut contracts and 5-year no-cut contracts, and they'd be a mediocre second baseman getting a 3-year no-cut contract. So I went home and said, I'd really like one of these no-cut contracts, and she said, no, month to month.
Ginny Uberoth, you have to stand up. Where are you?
She's right in the middle.
Right
The
here.
lights. Keep the lights up 1 second. With 3 of my grandsons stand up, I want to show you I'm not such a shorty. Three grandsons stand up.
3 power forwards.
I'd have my gorgeous granddaughter stand up, but she would be mad at me for doing that. So
You're still active. You still look great.
Thank you.
Is there a next for you?
Yeah, somebody asked me what's the best thing that you've done, and I you know, bringing that piece of property away from the Japanese into permanent hands and not let some buyer who's going to have exit strategy. That's a big thing for me. So, you know, if I had to rank, I'd probably rank that, because that's going to impact people for decades. And Dick and I, he was in there, we put our control shares down for 3 generations. So that's a place that everybody's great grandkids will be able to go. The 17-mile drive, we own that stuff. That was pretty good. But I think the long answer, the Rebuild LA, which got all just negative press. That whole area has gotten a chance, and if you drive through it, it's much better. The murder rate in Los Angeles went from 1992 at 1,000, and I'm pretty accurate on that. Now, hopefully this year we might even have the first year under 200. And so that's probably my best thing. But the bottom line is I don't think I've done it yet. So whatever is the best thing, I haven't done it yet. I'll figure it out.
I think what might be next is Judy may be coming out, and there is some presentation of hardware.
Yeah, I think to give you a little sense, it'll be a presentation of hardware. And I got one thing I must tell you all, and it'll be not more than 2 minutes, and we'll get you out of here. But you know what I do? Let me just do it. I don't have the hardware yet, but let me just tell you what's on my mind, and that is John Wooden. John Wooden, I said he he is. And what you've done today, the commonality for all of you here in the room is you have, he has technically passed, but what he stands for hasn't passed. So John Wooden is the best representation that there is of integrity, the best representation there is of being an American and doing the right thing. And you've taken the fact that he's not here tonight, and by the biggest crowd ever at this event, you've launched it, and this is going to serve UCLA, but mostly serve an awful lot of people for a long time to come. And so our whole family, we congratulate all of you, because you're really part of a history, and we'll be coming back, and this thing's going to get bigger and better, and obviously UCLA will get bigger and better. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, that was fascinating, humbling, inspiring. Thank you, Peter, for all you've done for this city, for the country. And thank you, Al, for providing a window into Peter's innumerable achievements and actually the depth of his convictions, integrity, and everything that he believes in. When we look for a role model to inspire in our students and future generations the courage to pursue the seemingly unattainable because it's just the right thing to do, like staging the '84 Olympics with no public money, or rebuilding a fractured city after riots, there's no greater inspiration than our honoree tonight, Peter Ueberroth. As you heard, Peter's resume is as remarkable as it is varied. And at the risk of repeating what Al so well covered this evening, I'll highlight just the sheer range of his accomplishments. Here are just a few of Peter's personal and career distinctions. As Kurt Kerkorian mentioned, vice president of an airline at 22, founder and owner of First Travel Corporation, which Peter built into the U.S.'s second largest company by age 42, president of the 1984 LA Olympic Organizing Committee, the first privately funded Olympics in history. Huge success, leaving an astonishing $215 million surplus that still lives on. Time Man of the Year, 1984, for his Olympic triumph. Commissioner of Major League Baseball from '84 to '89, taking a melee of bickering owners, disgruntled players, and striking umpires, and a league where 21 of the 26 teams were losing money, and corralling them into focusing on the fans and actually making money. Board member of Coca-Cola since '86 and previously Hilton Hotels, co-chair of Rebuild LA after the '92 Rodney King riots, chair of the U.S. Olympic Committee from 2004 to 2008, gubernatorial candidate in 2003, running as an independent, co-owner of Pebble Beach Company with, among other illustrious partners, Clint Eastwood and Arnold Palmer, founder and chairman of Contrarian Group, an investment company, author of the best-selling autobiography of his Olympic years, Made in America, recipient of 12 honorary degrees, husband to Ginny for 620 months, father of 4, grandfather of 8, generous philanthropist with Ginny through the Ueberroth Family Foundation focused on Orange County, where they live. Well, if you're like me, by now you feel like a crumb. And yet, these highlights, formidable as they are, do not tell the whole story. I had the opportunity earlier today to interview Peter in front of a group of students and guests, and what struck me quite forcibly were the parallels between Peter's fiercely principled leadership and the values of Coach Wooden. Here's one small example. After deciding to withdraw from the gubernatorial race in 2003, Peter, who'd raised at the time $2 million, decided to return every penny to the contributors out of his own pocket. Now, how novel is that in this day and age? Like Coach Wooden, Peter has always been more concerned with the long-term consequences of his actions and decisions than of their immediate and material success. Every host city of Olympics games since '84 has followed Peter's playbook like a Bible. Every civic organization he's touched is stronger today because of Peter's visionary and uncompromising leadership. And because he has a knack of pulling people together who become an impassioned force attaining previously out-of-reach targets. Peter Ueberroth is a remarkable civic leader who is also gifted with extraordinary business talents. He exudes honor and integrity in everything he does. John Wooden would be impressed. John Wooden would be proud. It is my pleasure and true privilege to present the 2011 John Wooden Global Leadership Award to a leader who embodies the coach's inspiring values, Mr. Peter Ueberroth.
Thank you. For the rest of our lives, all of us will owe John Wooden a great debt of gratitude. The way you can do it is give an award to some person next year like this, but then also add to it an award for integrity, much like the Nobel Prize does for peace, the Wooden Prize for integrity. And it doesn't have to be anyone that has to come and speak or do anything. They can just show up, and they should have UCLA stands for integrity. Our country stands for integrity. There should be a Wooden Prize for integrity as part of this.